together as a community and as citizens to share with one another the importance of being here as community. And so, to begin, I would like to introduce Boy Scout Troop 557 for the presentation of our colors.
All right, thank you everyone for coming. We're about to do the flag ceremony. So, can I have your attention all, please? Thank you. Color guard, forward march. Go. Color guard, prepare to post the colors. Color guard, post the colors. Hand over heart. Color guard, retreat. We are now going to have someone sing the national anthem. Martha Lee. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched was so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the Star-Spangled Banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
brave. Monday Memorial Day to join us for the National Day of Solidarity Against AAPI Hate Greater Seattle Rally. Can I get a round of applause for that? Thank you. And we're gathered here today for several reasons. First off, given that May is API Heritage Month and today is Memorial Day, we're here to honor Asian Americans, and especially our Asian Americans who gave their life in service to our country. Secondly, and maybe most saliently, because my t-shirt says it, we're here because anti-Asian, anti-API hate crimes are up 900% in part due to COVID-related racism. Additionally, we are seeing videos, we are hearing accounts of people being verbally abused, physically abused, even murdered, just because they're Asian. And we're here today to take a stand and say, that's not okay. And moreover, in fact, we're here to say that hate against anyone of any race, of any sexual orientation, of anything, is not okay. Hate has no home here. Today, we have a fantastic lineup of people who are dedicated to fighting AAPI hate, and also young people who will be the future leaders of our community. So please give them your attention. Thank you.
I know it's a holiday, but look at how many people have turned out to stand up against hate and race-based violence. Thank you for being here. And as a nation, we must stand together. Stand together against hatred. Stand together against bias. Stand together against racist violence and the upsurge in all of those scourges against Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Americans. We will not stand for it. The pandemic of this last year has exposed even deeper sicknesses in our country. The sicknesses of racism, the virus of hate. And it has been unleashed in a way I have not seen in my lifetime. And there is one response to that, which is to step up to it, to knock it down, to knock it back, to say this is utterly unacceptable, to refuse to allow any expressions of hate and bias and violence toward anyone based on race or religion or any other characteristic. It is not American. Our siblings in the Pacific Islander and Asian American communities have faced racist smears and threats. They've faced violent public attacks, and maybe most despicably, violent attacks on elders. And they have faced, as Edwin said, murder. Killings in Atlanta, but here closer to home, just a few miles from here. A young man killed in the city of Bothell. We will not stand for this. We must stand up to it. And we will fight back. We are going to wage this battle with all of our strength, with all of our resources. We're going to unite our community against those who would divide us. We will stand strong against a tide of hate, and we will drive it back and out of Martin Luther King County. But let me make this clear. We in King County are not simply biding our time and waiting for this to pass. No, we have a much bigger job to do. In response to this wave of hate, King County has pushed back by investing in grants to a network of community-based organizations that is working to identify those very incidents of hate, those very incidents of bias, those very incidents of violence, and to raise them up and to shine a spotlight on them so that we can attack them, we can push back against them. Our coalition against hate and bias in King County includes the Chinese Information Service and Service Center, includes East Side for All, includes many other organizations that are fighting racial violence, that are fighting the parallel upsurge in anti-Semitism that we are seeing in this nation. We have to stand strong, and we have to stand together against this. And we are also funding community-based ethnic media so that when those incidents are identified, we can get the word out to people. We can help people understand what's going on. Do you know that this coalition against hate and bias has identified 7 times the number of incidents that have been reported directly to the police? That's why we need trusted community-based voices reaching out to find out what's really going on in our communities and to tell everyone what's going on in our communities and how to stop it. We're aiding local businesses as well to ensure that those Asian-owned businesses, those Black-owned businesses, those Indigenous and Latino-owned businesses that have been so harmed by the pandemic have the resources to get through the rest of this and to get moving again, to hire people, to build community wealth, to be able to create the community we want, which is one that is welcoming and in which every person has the opportunity to thrive. That is our true north at King County. I don't think I need to tell anyone here that the Asian community has a long, long history here on the East Side. One of our speakers will later be talking about how immigrant workers from China built the railroad to bring coal from the fields of Newcastle to the ports in Seattle. And the land on which we now stand was farmed by Japanese immigrant farmers coming to this country to make a better life for themselves and their children, long before high-rises, long before shopping malls. This is the land that they worked to make their way in America. And today, just as my grandfather, who is an immigrant, and my mother-in-law, who is an immigrant and is still with us, helped build this country, today new influxes of immigrants are coming from all around the world, and especially from Asia and the Pacific, to continue to build this country. We are a welcoming community for them, where every person has the opportunity to thrive. That is our true north. They bring new energy. They bring new ideas. And I want to challenge everyone in our community to support Asian immigrants, to support Pacific Islander immigrants, to support Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Americans who have been here for generations, to support their businesses, to patronize restaurants. I may go there right after I leave here. And I'm here to tell you that we have the resources in this community to become the kind of place we want America to be. A place where every person is welcome, where every person can thrive, where racism has been uprooted and removed from all of our systems, public and private. Will you join me in that quest? Thank you for being here today together on this Memorial Day, as we remember those who gave their lives for the principles on which this country was founded. It is our job to take those principles, those ideas, those ideals, and make them real in America. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let's give a hand to our veterans. There we go. I'm proud of the strength and the courage that our AAPI community has shown, but you're not alone. Just over 6 weeks ago, we all stood here together with hundreds of supporters in the pouring rain. It was bitterly cold, and we were all here together standing in solidarity against Asian hate. And immediately after that, we launched a campaign in our city that hate has no home here. And that campaign was adopted by all the cities on the east side, so that now when you walk around on the east side, you see these signs in homes and businesses that show our support for this community. We all stand together with anyone who is disrespected, marginalized, or threatened. In Bellevue, diversity is our strength, and hate has no home here. We stand beside you. Thank you.
And we all, as the mayor said, Bellevue and the rest of the city on the east side, the Suburban or Sun Cities Association, we're all standing together to say that hate has no home here. In fact, hate has no home in Bellevue. Hate has no home anywhere. Here we go. So, although today is a Memorial Day, we must recognize our people who have given the ultimate sacrifice, the veterans who have laid down their life for us. We are thankful. But also must remember they are part of our history. And today we are having a rally against anti-Asian hate. But it's more than anti-Asian hate. There's hate against anyone. We are against hate no matter where, no matter when. It's not tolerable. It's toxic. So we must fight against it. Bellevue, is a very, very diverse city. It's one of the most diverse in the state of Washington. Over 40% of the population report they have Asian Pacific Islander ancestry. So indeed, as an immigrant myself, as somebody from Asia, as an American citizen by choice, I feel very, very much touched by what's happening to us. But it's not just us, but it's for everyone. So I think Bellevue has been very proud that we have been given the respect, the city council, and us, we all work very hard to make sure that we do not tolerate it. We have a place where hate has no home. We have a place where we respect each other. We respect people. We share the same feeling that Bellevue is where we belong. It's a place where we all can call home. I think that's the difference. But hate cannot call this place home. So it's important that, I really appreciate you guys coming and standing up and fight against hate of any kind, of any sort. So as a council member, as the rest of the city council very much articulated and led by the mayor, we are going to make sure Bellevue will continue to be safe. We want to be safe for the rest of the nation, and we want to be safe for everyone, regardless of gender, age, sex, color. And our city, our businesses, our residents, our institutions of worship and of education, we all stand together. We want to make sure we continue. With your support, with your coming out, standing up, we'll succeed in fighting against hate. From now, I believe that's important, that we see a lot of you out there, we see young people out there, and I'm really, really impressed with what has happened. And so we want to make sure we all leave here and take action to actually do something, to turn our speech, turn our anger, turn our sentiment into action. Thank you. Thank you.
Proud of all of our veterans and particularly people who were in their home country at the time looked upon poorly and treated poorly, and yet they went to battle for this country. And I think that is something that really resonates with us and says we've got to stop hate. We've got to stop that. We've got to be equitable. We've got to work with people together. And we really, really value this community. We're all immigrants. My family came from poor Scotch-Irish over there working on Irish farms for the Englishmen. And they came from France and grew up in East Texas and in a segregated community. And I worked real hard. I worked on civil rights for all my years. And I had the honor and privilege and task to work with Vietnam refugees coming in after the war in Texas and finding a new life. We went over there to Arkansas and down in South Texas, along the Gulf, and these were people who came in and added greatly to the community. So I'm very pleased to have this community of Asians and coming in, and people who are from all over the world, bringing culture, bringing different views to us, and we all are Americans. And thank you particularly to those, there's only one veteran I understand here today, but we all represent veterans. So the other factor is that we need to work together, all of us, and learn about each other. I'm very interested in learning more about your stories. I have stories, and I think what we're doing in this community is really coming together and talking with each other. We're just not groups off to the side doing something differently. We're bringing a great strength to this culture and to this city. So thank you very much. Let's keep working together, keep pushing, and let's stop hate in the whole state. Let's stop it in this nation. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Our voice needs to be heard. We can't be silent anymore. And I have to say that I'm so proud of Bellevue, because February, 15 months ago, when we started hearing that our communities, our kids were being called the Chinese virus, we put a proclamation against what we were seeing in our community. We were the first in King County to put out that pronouncement that then many other cities took on. And unfortunately, a year later, we're standing here again because we continue to see the anti-Asian hate. The woman that was attacked in Chinatown International District, the women that were killed in Atlanta because someone had a bad day. That has got to stop. We do not need to continue to show that we are American. We are American. Think about, this is Memorial Day. Think about the Japanese Americans whose families were interned, and they stepped up to fight for our country, and many of them died. How do we make sure that we honor their lives and make sure that we do not allow hate anywhere? Not in Bellevue, not in Washington, not in the United States, anywhere. And how do we do that? We make sure we show up, we speak up, we share our stories, and we're proud to be Asian American. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, We want to be acknowledged for our very identity because we belong here, right? Do we belong here? Yes. Bellevue welcomes you. We are a welcoming place and we absolutely belong. And the more that we show up for each other, because hate, frankly, is everywhere. Right? It was only 100 years ago that there was the Tulsa massacre of the Black Wall Street. We just discovered 215 bodies of indigenous kids in Canada. This is the kind of hate that's been around for centuries, that we need to step up and we need to find a new way. Let's open up our hearts and let's make sure that we truly do denounce hate and that hate has no home here, and that we are together in unity for each other and standing up in solidarity. Anytime anyone is harmed, we are all harmed. Thank you for being here.
In honor of our Asian American and Pacific Islander community members. It's also an opportunity to celebrate the signage of the Anti-Asian Hate Crimes Bill signed by President Biden. So each of us has a responsibility to condemn discriminatory acts and hate, and to support each other as a community, because the only way we could do this is together. So it's good to see each of you here today in unity, standing against hate, discrimination, and racism. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? How are you? All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to the organizer, particularly to the young people. And Edmund, thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Conrad Lee. Where are you? Thank you for your mentorship and for leadership for our community. So thank you so much. And thank you, Mayor, for being here, and council members from Bellevue. You know, as the introduction says, I'm a Renton City Council member, but you know, coming here, I'm actually coming in this place as an Asian American woman, as an Asian American daughter, as an Asian American mother of 2 little kiddos. And when we heard the term Chinese virus back in March, February last year, I took it to King County. I made sure that our Renton City Council understand that being the first Asian American woman in Renton City Council means that we really need to look at our multicultural cities, which means that we need to proclaim against hate, denouncing such words and terminology, and put our words and proclamation to action, meaning our budget, meaning what are we going to do to make it appropriate, culturally appropriate programs for victims, survivors. What are we going to do with our talks and proclamation when it's done? It means putting money where our mouth is at. So for those who are here, may I have a raise of hand? Who's a former refugee? Raise your hand. Who's an immigrant? Who's born here? Who has children born here? There you go. That's all of us. We're all Americans. We don't have to ask to be belonging here. All right? We need to step into our own power, because I swore to protect the Constitution 3 times. As a naturalized citizen, as a council member, as an attorney. So I want to make sure we own that. So make sure that you help us, help our community, by 1, holding our elected officials accountable. What do you do? Vote. What do you do? Vote. I can't hear you. What do you do? Vote. Second, I want you to please comment at council meetings, legislature meetings, all the meetings that are public hearings. What do I want you to do? Comment at council. Comment at council. Comment at council. Comment at council. And last, please think of running for office, because we need lived experience in office. We need people that look like you and I, who share similar experiences, who have lived experience and professional experience to help move our city forward. Can I count on you to do those things? Hold us accountable. Yes. Can I get a yes? Yes. Thank you. And last, please remember the names of the victims, because they're not nameless victims. I have 2 names I want to leave here, and I invite them into the space. John Huynh, just like the executive mentioned, John Huynh was a 29-year-old Chinese American man murdered, he was stabbed and murdered in Bothell. We want justice, but we want accountability. John Huynh. Second, Shane Nguyen, Indiana man, Chinese, Vietnamese, his body, he was murdered and his body dismembered. Shane Nguyen. So please remember the name of the victims and please hold us accountable. Thank you.
My name is Mason G. In 2015, I was appointed by President Obama to be one of the White House ambassadors on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. My mandate was very clear: to make America a more inclusive society. And as I traveled across the country, I witnessed so many incredible individuals and families from AAPI backgrounds who had such resilience and such passion and bravery in the face of danger. And I salute them. That is the America that I know. That is the America that I grew up with. And so when I heard the story of people of Asian heritage being murdered in the streets of America, I was angry, I was frustrated, because that's the America that I am unfamiliar with. America is a beacon of hope, a great melting pot of society. Look at our attendance today. We have people from all walks of life, all ethnicities, all coming here together in solidarity. So I thank you. I thank you for your efforts, and I thank you for your activism. But that is not enough. Today is the first step towards a much longer journey of engagement and of activism for all of our community. Because in order to stem this entire tide of hatred and of anger, we need to continue to be engaged. And that means engaging with your elected representatives. That means engaging with politics. And that means voting. All of us here can do our part. And together we can fight back against hate. It's not hard. We can and we should do just that. And let me be very clear. Hate has no place in our society. Hate has no place in America, because that is not who defines us. We came here with the hope and the dream of being Americans, and that's exactly what we are. I myself am an immigrant. My parents came to the United States in hopes of pursuing a better life. And I hope that those in my generation can continue to carry the torch of that hope and of that message. I believe that the fabric of society that binds us and connects us is stronger than the ones that ultimately tears us apart. So together let's stand, and together let's fight, and together let's remain engaged. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mason.
How are you all doing today? Good. Thank you for coming out on a very warm day. I want to take a moment and say thank you to all those who have organized and everyone who have spoken before me. I echo their sentiment. Hate has no place here. As I look around at this gathering today, I'm grateful to see our community come together to support our Asian American and Pacific Islander community members. The collective energy from everyone here, along with the commitments for our elected officials, are what we need to put a stop to the racist hatred and violence so many in our community face. As an immigrant, parent, and educator, my heart and mind immediately go to our kids. I've seen many of our kids, our students, rise to the events of the past year with grace and confidence, despite so much fear and uncertainty. But I've also seen a level of suffering and loss that has forever changed families in our community. We must look at this moment in time for what it is. This moment is showing us with a great clarity our weak points, the exact places where we need to focus. As someone who has spent all of my adult life focused on advocating for equity in our schools, and as an educator who has worked with our most vulnerable students, I see this moment as an opportunity to make meaningful generational change. So let's do that. The end of the school year is upon us. Let us join together, use the summer months to think creatively about how we go back to school in fall. Let us engage with families who are genuinely fearful of the hate they face and create spaces of safety for our kids to recover, to connect with help, to find a way forward in the healthiest possible way so that each student can grow, thrive, and be the best they can be. As a community, we have an obligation. We see the situation before us, and we have an obligation to act. Let's act with open eyes and with hope. Let's act in a way that our kids will look back on this time as the time when things changed and things got better for everyone in our community. Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for the organizer. Thank you for King County Dow. Thank you for the mayor, for Lynn Robinson from Bellevue and the rest of the leadership in Bellevue. And most important, thank you for you. Why? Look at the sky. Why are you here? Because you care. We care. About a little bit over a month ago, I was here the first time. It was pouring rain. It was pouring rain and thousands of people showed up. And they were very, very keen and enthusiastic about this event. But they didn't have the weather like we do today. So, comparison to that, you are the most important of this movement. Most of you know the violence. I was as hurt as you did. Most of you know about how important to speak up to fight for the Stop Asian Hate movement. But more importantly, I want to share with you today is a different angle. I want to share with you my thought, my personal feeling from the positive side to deal with the issues. I wrote a long speech this morning. Well, about 9 o'clock, I threw that speech away. You should be very glad. It was kind of boring. I went to an event I didn't expect to learn something what I learned to share with you today. We have a little city started only about 27 years ago called the city of Newcastle, which is 15 minutes southeast of Bellevue. Some of you been there, passed by there very quick from Bellevue to Renton. Most of you never heard of Newcastle. But let me share with you 1863, back to 1863. We were one of the largest coal mine community in this country. There were a lot of contract Chinese workers came from China, boatload to this area to help to do the coal mining. I went to the cemetery open house today. There were a lot of people who died at the coal mine during the time period. With the exception, there is a corner set aside for the Chinese who died in a coal mine. Chinese American and many other Asian American is part of the reason we have this country. We built this country together. We are as much as American as everybody else. And the only way to deal with the hate issues, we have to step up to take that position that we are responsible, everything just like everybody else. So the point I'm trying to make is, you don't have to run for office like I did the first time, but whatever you do as a manager of your department or your owners of your companies or a successful neighbor, step up to the plate. We are all American. We need to take responsibility. We being recognized as the one who take accountable action to help to build this country better for everyone. So with that, when I was here last time, it was pouring rain, And I'm looking all of the people there and listen to every good speaker was speaking. I said, what could I do? Well, I went to King County and filed my campaign registration, running for city council for the first time. And I'm not a politician, but I care. I care about my city. I care about the community. I care about all the kids we have growing up in this country going forward. If we don't do something about that, they might have to encounter the same issues. Been around for a long time. I have been in this country as an immigrant for half a century. 50 years gone by, blink of my eyes. But I still have a lot to learn, and I like to be part of the community like you do to continue to support this country. The last point I want to share with you, a little thing I read a couple while ago. It's a professor did a very, very quick test in the class. He said everybody blow up a balloon and write your name on it. And he threw the balloon in the hallway and tell the student, I give you 5 minutes and go in there and fire your own balloon with your name on it. 5 minutes later, nobody could fire the balloon because they all mixed together, same color. Then he said, let's change something. All of you gonna fire a balloon, pick up the name and go to that person and hand the balloon over. 5 minutes later, everybody get the balloon. What is the point to make? The point is, you do not have to do everything for everyone else, but you have to do one part to share the responsibility. What the outcome of that? We're all going to be successful. That's the only way to do that. Thank you very much.
My name is Will Chung. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I came to the United States as a young man, speaking no English. I start with ESL. This morning I just take out my old pictures. When I get my ESL certificate in Iowa, I was so excited. Like Jesse Tang, I myself filed to run for office for the first time. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But it's worth it. It's worth it. In this process, I meet a lot of good people, have great engagement. It's the daily process that we all need to get involved. I don't want to repeat what has been said all along. Great message. I just want to stress two things. One, as Americans, we are Americans, all of us. We come here, call this home, but we have to turn out our vote. I know there are some people, even my own relatives, who have been here for decades. And when they get the ballots, what they do? They toss in the trash can. You just lost your voice. You have to open the ballot, study the candidates. If you have language barriers, find some help. There's help everywhere. You have to participate. You have to vote. Number two, we all cried out for equities, and we all cried out for help. But remember, there are people who need our help. There are people who are still at the earlier stages. I have been here for 26 years. Jesse has been here for 50 years. But there are newcomers. There are people who, like my mother, who don't speak English at all. They need our help. So when they need help, don't forget to reach out and extend a hand of help. Together we will.
Thank you, Will.
My name is Fei Yang. I'm running for Bellevue School District Board position this year. As an Asian American, I believe Asians should make their voice heard, and Asians should be more active in political process. We stand here today to celebrate Asian Pacific Islanders in Heritage Month. We also stand here together to against Asian hate or any hate. Hate has no home here. Asians were one of the first group settled in this country. The DNA evidence shows Pacific Islanders have lived in this place for thousands of years. Since first Filipino arriving in Moto Bay, California in 16th centuries, Chinese, Filipinos, Japanese, and other Asian ethnic groups have immigrated to this country. Our ancestors have contributed to this country's foundation. Over 90% of the railroad were built by Chinese laborers. However, about 140 years ago, there were violence against Asians. Those Chinese settled in Tacoma and Issaquah were expelled violently from their homes. About 80 years ago, Japanese descendants were detained in internment camps. We have witnessed increased violence against Asians recently. We need to stand together and work together and make our voice heard so we can protect us from this happening again. I believe with everyone's involvement, with all the politicians, all the citizens, the Americans, we will make our community and nation a safe place to live for everyone. Thank you. Thank you for your effort.
Thank you everyone for coming here today. For the past 15 years, I have proudly called this country home. This means that I belong and I was accepted for who I am. However, between March 2020, where the pandemic began, to March 31st, 2021, 6,600 hate incidents against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders were reported. Now I'm questioning if I was ever truly welcome here. When the coronavirus was declared a pandemic, back in March 2020, I recall sitting in a classroom with my peers discussing this news. It came from China, right? I heard a friend say. I knew that my friend did not intend to blame anyone, but I felt hurt. I felt hurt by the way these words demanded my silence. As I found myself lost in my thoughts, I recall thinking, is this what it means to be Chinese now? The virus became something that ripped America apart, that made Asian Americans feel unsafe, targeted, even killed. The problem here is not where the virus came from. The problem here is that people use it as a weapon to harm members of their Asian communities. They use it as an excuse for violence and for hate. It is extremely hurtful seeing people walking away from me, and to hear those hurtful comments, all because of my race. My race does not make me any less of an American. I shouldn't be afraid to walk the streets where I call home. As part of the Asian American community, I want everyone to recognize what our society has become. It's everyone's responsibility to raise consciousness on this issue and to actively engage. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Sarah. I'm a junior at Bellevue High School and I demand my story as an Asian American woman to be heard. So when I was a child, I suffered the standard bullying, the routine bullying for an Asian kid. Like when I was 6 years old, I was bullied for my eyes, my language, my culture. Boys would crowd around my desk and pull their eyes back and call me Ling Ling. When I was 7 years old, I constantly threw away my hand-packed lunch of dumplings every single day because my friends said they smelled bad. I was embarrassed and often bought a school lunch, or I just went hungry. And every day, when my grandma picked me up from the bus stop, she would ask if I liked the dumplings that we made. And every single time, without fail, I lied and said I loved them. As I grew older, my American-born Chinese experience became different, just because I was a woman. When I was 13, I was relentlessly tormented by a college student with an Asian fetish. He begged me for sexual favors and for pictures, all throughout middle school. Not too long ago, my friend and I were followed and cornered by two men. We were asked question after question about our birthplace, our skin tone, as if our exoticness interested them. These events may not be shown in the larger narrative of AAPI hate crimes and microaggressions, but nonetheless, they are worthwhile stories to be told. The Asian American woman has been systematically erased from the narrative and is not included in many definitions of a racial minority. And now thousands of anti-Asian attacks have occurred against women specifically. Over 500 have occurred in 2021 alone. It's an uncomfortable topic, but Asian women are being targeted, perhaps because we are seen as more weaker, more docile, smaller. Concepts such as yellow fever contribute to the racial dehumanization and the objectification of the Asian woman's body. The further you sexualize us, the greater the occurrences of violence. This fetishization must go on no longer. We are not your dolls. We are not your toys. We are not your fantasy, your objects, your exotic keepsakes to spend and abuse. We are strong Asian American women, and at the very root of it, we are American people. We deserve the same respect, peace, and safety as any other American individual. And we may get our 15 minutes now, our news segment of the month, or our front page article, but what about in the future? Will we be forgotten? We are angry and tired and determined to be heard. As a community, we must not forget this anger. So don't try to avoid the discomfort, but rather seek it out and discover why those topics are so uncomfortable to talk about. Continue to attend these rallies, be willing to share your story, and support those who speak up for their rights. Don't let the sufferings of many be lost and erased. To every lawmaker, official, justice leader, I implore you to listen. We must not lose any more lives. Stop the abuse, mistreatment, and harassment of Asian American women. Stop Asian hate. We fight for ourselves and we fight for our community. Thank you very much.
Everyone, it's such a beautiful day. Everyone from there to there, especially people in the back that are being very respectful of us. Thank you to Conrad Lee and whoever else for organizing this opportunity for all of us to speak to you today. Like he said, my name is Richard Lee. I am a rising sophomore at Bellevue High School. I am a teammate, a brother, and a son. I'm an Asian American youth living within the city of Bellevue. Now, me moving from California and Bellevue in itself was enough to worry my grandfather, who lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. He had called me a few weeks ago when San Francisco was reeling from the spike of anti-Asian hate crimes. Now, it had been a while since we last spoke, but instead of asking about my classes, or my friends, or my swimming, he asked me, "Are you safe? Have they hurt you?" No, Agong, did they hurt you? Are you safe? My grandparents have holed themselves up in their apartment since last March, terrified enough of the coronavirus not even to take their long morning walks. And they love their long morning walks. At the same time, I felt so helpless. There's only so much cheering up one can do over FaceTime, and ever since January or February, they've been vaccinated. But still holds up in their apartment, terrified of and now inhaling a punch of hate instead of a breath of fresh air. Now I'm done feeling helpless. I couldn't even fight a microscopic particle, but I can help fight this. The wave of anti-Asian hate didn't rise from nowhere. Prejudices are passed down from generation to generation. In the hallways at school, in the swim team, when you go to the shopping mall, just when you're in the parking lot, I've seen this firsthand. Too many of us passively let these comments slide. This is unacceptable. I'd like to hold all of us accountable because there's no such thing as too young or too old. The time is now. Now is the time to educate ourselves on the pervasive issues in society that won't end with our grandparents. Now is the time to take initiative and to make change possible. We must protect our Asian American and Pacific Islander brethren. Speak on social media, go to rallies. Such normalized racism must be uprooted and discarded. I'm tired of us Asian American Pacific Islanders being used as a punching bag. Speak to your friends, to your peers. Speak to everyone, share your stories. Call people out on microaggressions. Screw being called a snowflake. We don't want to live in America where Asian mothers and fathers have to worry about their own children being killed on the streets while walking home. I don't want to live in America where my own grandpa can't enjoy fresh air without the risk of being beaten up. We must fight back against this discrimination in hopes that one day we can live in an America that doesn't hate us anymore. Thank you.
And I'm a sophomore at International School of Bellevue and a second-generation Chinese American. I'm here today to talk about the rising hate crimes in this country and why this impacts me and my generation. I'm a typical 16-year-old trying to get through school, graduate, and live a life. But here I am hearing and seeing a trend of violence against elderly and deaths on the news. One that touched me the most was the 6 Asian women who died in the Atlanta mass shooting. That's enough. We must join together to condemn hate, racial remarks, and violence in all forms, and drive necessary changes with law and enforcement. Why do I have to be afraid to go outside, fearing I might just get hurt because of the color of my skin? Why do I have to tell my brother to not go out and get the mail across the street? And why do I have to tell my grandparents to stay home because of the recent increase of hate crimes? I am only 16. Who are we to categorize people based on ethnicity and skin color? We should be able to be ourselves without being discriminated against. And we must take time to make people aware of the impact of hate and violence. And for the future, we must educate our generation and embrace our differences. We must move forward. And I'm proud to be an Asian American. Thank you.
For all staying this long. I know it's been a very, very long time and it's very sunny outside, but you are all still here, so I appreciate that. So today, we want to ask ourselves the question, what does it mean to be Asian American? Because being Indian American means that checking the Asian box on the census just feels, well, not quite right. It means that when you step into a room and say that you're Asian, you can always expect at least one person to say, "Are you sure?" Being a South Asian has made me struggle with my identity as an Asian American. It's hard not to feel separate from the label Asian when the standard seems to be East Asians. And with the wave of anime, K-pop, and Eastern Asian food and culture making its mark around the world, Asian doesn't seem to encompass much else. Regardless of this, I never resented the perception of Asian as lighter-skinned, ethnically East Asian individuals. To me and to many other South Asians, it was just an annoying, inconvenient misconception that comes up from time to time. So you start calling yourself Indian, not Asian, though both labels are equally as valid. And so we go on, thinking that we are different, when really in some way we are all connected. Standing here today, Asians and allies, we show that unity more than ever before. Because now, as we all gather here today, at this rally against Asian hate, it becomes apparent that the problems that Asians face are all too similar, regardless of our various ethnicities. Chung Park, Hyunjin Grant, Suncha Kim, Young Ayu, Xiaoju Ten, Daofu Feng. These 6 Asian women were horrifically shot dead in the Atlanta spa shooting spree just 2 months ago. Amjit Joshi, Jaswinder Kaur, Jaswinder Singh, Amjit Sekun. These 4 Asian men were all murdered by a 19-year-old gunman as they worked together on their late-night regular Thursday shift just a month ago. There are different struggles that we all face, but we must understand that these struggles should unite us, not divide us. There is no Asian experience in the US. We're all so different, culturally, ethnically, and socially. The most powerful thing that can unite us is the fight against white supremacy. Because white supremacy does not care if you're Korean, Chinese, Indian, Vietnamese, Filipino, Hmong, Malaysian. White supremacy leaves no non-white individual untouched by racism, implicit or explicit. So today, when we stand here today in protest of anti-Asian hate, we must understand that there is much more that we all stand for. Not only are you standing here to honor those victims of anti-Asian hate, but also to ally with other Asians and non-Asians alike in the great fight to dismantle racism. We need Asian solidarity. We need Black Asian solidarity. Can I hear that again? Black Asian solidarity. We need white allies. I see some white allies with us here today. We need to rid our very own Asian communities of anti-Blackness. Do our part to take down the racist systems that we ourselves might uphold. Being here today is the first step to making this change and committing yourself to this great fight for justice. This movement is bigger than your home, your church community, or temple. It's bigger than your neighborhood, and it is certainly bigger than Bellevue. Only when we unite can we make a step towards a more just city, a more just nation, and hopefully a more just world. Thank you.
Washington State Representative Mia Gregerson. She says, congratulations and thank you to our local community members who have rallied together to organize such an important event. It's particularly heartwarming and impressive to be in solidarity with so many who wish to lift up and honor our veterans and Asian American Washingtonians who contribute every single day in making this world a better place. Staying quiet has never been the answer to injustice.
Chief Myron, thank you. And of course, especially, I want to acknowledge our Pathway Foundation and YouthLink, Bellevue YouthLink board members. We are well represented by young people. That's the most important thing, young people, our future. And you've heard them speak. You've watched them standing here talking to you. And aren't you happy that our future is in their hands? Here we go. They bring everybody together, to bring family together, to bring you and I together, to bring all races together, all people of all colors, stripes, all people under God together. So it's amazing. So one thing I want to close is that the young people, after we heard all this talk, we have a word that we say, politicians, all you hear is talk and no action, right? So on behalf of the city council and my city council members and police chief, we will do something. We will make sure this is going to do the things to fight hate. Thank you. And the young people is a great model, great example of doing something. Under Pathway Foundation, under Bellevue YouthLink, they are doing things. They are going out, they're acting, they're working with the community. They are involved with the Census 2020. They're involved with the Northwest Bloodworks. They are involved with telling adults, grown-ups like we, like us, of all different communities working together. So please, follow them, follow the example. Thank you very much. I think that should be one more speaker. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I apologize, I'm the MC and I dropped the ball, but we do have one more speaker, again from Interlake High School. Sarah Desai is going to close us off here.
We are Asians, unified in one identity, but we are made of many. We are Indian, Pakistani, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Japanese, Thai, Filipino, Laotian, Malaysian, Indonesian, and many more. We come from such beautiful, rich cultures, backgrounds, and countries to come to a land of opportunity. But this is not the land of the free that we were promised. Hate crimes motivated by anti-Asian sentiment in 16 of the nation's largest cities have jumped up by 164% in the past year. This number is astonishing, but when you step back and take a look at the vast amount of casual racism that has been tolerated and even applauded for years and decades, you start to realize the immense weight that these words carry. When politicians and people with power and influence spout derogatory terms and phrases on a daily basis, it's no wonder that racism becomes glorified. When hate speech and discrimination is allowed to be valued above love and compassion, that is when we become divided and detested. That's why we're having this rally. We have to start these conversations to combat hate that we face, because hate has consequences. People get hurt and people die. That's why we have to be the ones to say no more. Not here, not now, not ever. Thank you.